The envelopes have been opened, the speeches have been made, and Broadway has had its biggest night of the year. Now it's time to make sense of it all. Who deserved to win, and what does it mean for the season ahead? On this season finale of Theater All the Moving Parts, we're bringing back our panel of theater experts for the post-Tonys conversation. Welcome, I'm Patrick Pacheco. The 79th Annual Tony Awards have come and gone, and what a night it was. Schmigadoon took home Best Musical, Liberation won Best Play, Death of a Salesman led all the productions with 6 Tony wins, and Cats, the Jellicle Ball, made history more than once before the evening was over. To break it all down, I'm joined again by 4 theater experts who watched every minute of it. Janice Simpson is a theater journalist. Adam Feldman is the theater editor and chief reviewer for Time Out New York. Margaret Hall is a musical theater historian and staff writer for Playbill. And Zachary Stewart is the chief theater critic at TheaterMania. Welcome, and let's get into it. I'd like to start our conversation by asking each of you, what was the one highlight of the evening for you? Jan, let's start with you.
Well, as everyone knows, it was Lesley Manville winning for Best Actress. I've been rooting for her ever since I saw Oedipus in the fall, so I was delighted that she won.
Broadway debut, first time out on Broadway, and a Tony win. Adam.
In terms of the wins, the one that I was happiest, I think, was Louis Bourzgui for The Lost Boys. This was one that hadn't been a sure thing, and so seeing him win and seeing him give that really, I think, wonderful, carefully prepared speech, thoughtful, was an exciting moment for me.
I think we all join you in that, for sure. Margaret.
I was also thrilled to bits for Ollie, but I also really loved that Cats got choreography. I love this production of Jellicle Ball so much, and seeing Omari and Arturo win really warmed my heart.
Fantastic.
Gitchy, Lesley Manville. Gitchy, Carrie Coon. That made me smile. That was a great opening number. It was collaborative. It included so many of the nominees. It felt joyous. It was the best way to start that show.
My favorite opening number since Neil Patrick Harris is Bigger.
Well, that's high praise,
yeah,
because that has been the highlight of 79 years.
Mm-hmm.
And not just a really well-performed and well-written number, but also a really inclusive one. They got everyone in. They got all these, everyone who was in these shows who wouldn't necessarily be featured in the big numbers got a moment on stage in the sun. I thought that was really smart.
Well done.
The little boys from Ragtime.
There are always, obviously, disappointments. What were the disappointments for you?
The biggest disappointment for me was Nathan Lane not winning for Best Actor in Death of a Salesman. Death of a Salesman won 6 awards. It was the leading winner of the night, and yet he is the anchor of that production. He wanted it. It was so clear on his face. I wanted it for him, and I thought it was really unfair to lead off the broadcast with that highly competitive category, and that he had to sit there for the rest of the broadcast and not look as disappointed and heartbroken as I'm sure he was and as I was.
But he can comfort himself with his other 3 tones.
He lost John Lithgow.
He did.
For Giant. And it was a very competitive race.
Yeah, they're both wonderful. It's one of those ones, we talked about that before, there's some that you really want a tie, and this would have been one of those categories for me, because 2 wonderful performances. For me, the disappointment was, and I like Ragtime very much, I really was kind of hoping against hope that Cats the Jellicle Ball would pull it off for Best Revival. I just think that what it's doing with the material is so ambitious and successful. So is Ragtime, but this is just a really different category for me of achievement, and I'm glad it won its other Tonys. I would love for it to have won Best Revival.
There was a lot of watch parties, and when that was announced, the rooms went quiet. Margaret?
I'm in agreement with Adam there. I'm also sad that the Ballisters didn't get anywhere on the board. I really, really love this play. I love David Lindsay-Abaire, and I don't necessarily know who I would have turned over to give Ballisters something, but I wish that they had been on the board.
Zach.
I was disappointed that Two Strangers got nothing, actually. There was a lot of talk about these awards being split, something going to book, something going to score, and it was a Schmigadoon steamroll, which good for them, but it also makes the rest of the show somewhat anticlimactic because you know where it's going. You know Schmigadoon is going to take this Best Musical award.
Oh, I don't think it was always guaranteed at all. I mean, Schmigadoon won book and score and orchestrations, but then, you know, Cats won all these other ones. I think it was pretty even split. I was still hoping against
But
one
Cats wasn't going against Schmigadoon.
No, I'm sorry, but I mean, Lost Boys won.
Yeah,
yes, of course.
exactly.
Lost Boys had won for set. It had won for, you know, for two of its actors. It had won for lighting. You know, it had won more than Schmigadoon at that point, and I thought it really had a chance.
We'll get into that more when we come up to the musical categories, but for now, Pink was the host, and she led off by saying, "What the hell am I doing here?" Right? But
Spinning like
boy,
a top.
are we glad that she did.
That's what everybody was saying when she was announced, me included. But she turned out to be a terrific host. And she was saying before, this is going to be the best opener you've seen. It's going to be, and it was. It was a big party. As Adam said, everyone was there. I love the fact that even Lea Michele, who got left out of the nominations for Chess, showed up and was part of the party. It said, this is Broadway. We're all in it together, and we all want to entertain you. Come and join us.
It was very
it
gracious.
Was
It was a
terrific.
gracious opening, and as you said, inclusive. Ratings, how did they do? How did the show do?
From
Quite
what I
well.
understand, yeah.
Yeah.
It was way up from what I understand, and that doesn't surprise me. I think this telecast really knew how to keep an audience. Started off really strong, not just with this opening number, but then early presentations of big awards, like Cola Scola and Maya Rudolph presenting, you know, doing really well, really funny, really fresh, and so that attitude helps a lot in pushing. And then Schmigadoon as an early number with a lot of energy, it helps establish the tone of just sort of fun and let's watch what happens. And also, you know, this year, I complain about it so often when they're at Radio City because so often they don't know how to shoot it to make it look right. And this year, I really felt in every number, you know, the Ragtime number, they knew how to shoot it from the front, or just on top so that you can get all the pageantry. It wasn't lost in the space. And then some of the other numbers, which are more active, just really smartly shot.
Great point, because it leads us to our next question, which is, of course, the Tony Awards is Broadway's biggest infomercial. You really want to sell the tickets. A lot of the shows have been struggling, and they really needed those 3 to 5 minutes to sell it and perk up their box office. Zach, who did the best?
Oh, it was Cats, hands down. I mean, handing out that fans was those fans in the audience. It was the smartest choice they could make because it gives you a feel of what it's like in the Broadhurst with those fans snapping and people going wild. I think Rocky Horror actually did very well for themselves by inviting Bowen Yang up onto the stage to do the Time Warp along with Darren Criss. It makes you understand what the show is.
Margaret, in your opinion?
I'm in agreement. I thought the revivals did really well with their performances this year, and I also think the Lost Boys sold themselves well. If you liked what they presented, you're going to like the show.
If you're disposed towards it.
Yeah, I thought Lost Boys started off a little shaky, and then once it was into the rock sequence, I thought it was doing really well. I think that for me personally, too, Schmigadoon captured exactly what the show is in a very effective way. It's easy for them because they have this big opening number that literally establishes everything. But the choreo in that, of course, the choreography in Cats is amazing, and I was glad that it won, and it should have. But also, Chris Catelli in any other year for his choreography in Schmigadoon would have won. It's a beautifully and excitingly choreographed, and I thought that came off well.
And for you, Jan?
I agree about Schmigadoon. The Lost Boys presented itself as a rock concert, but it didn't really and couldn't convey what that show is really, what it. I kept turning to my husband and saying, that's really not quite the show. The show is a real spectacle, and they couldn't recreate that.
It's a pity they couldn't fly.
It did start with tape, did it not? Or was that a commercial?
Schmigadoon started with tape, and then they showed the commercial ad for the Lost Boys where you see them
I see,
flying,
with them flying.
and then it went into No More Monsters.
That's what I thought. The play the best play. It was a good night for mothers.
Yes, it
was. A good
was.
night for motherhood.
Casey,
Absolutely.
Shoshana,
Liberation. Good night for female playwrights.
Yes.
The first American female playwright to win since 1989, and Wendy Wasserstein winning for the Heidi Chronicles. I asked you last time we were together, would you be surprised if Liberation won? And you said, yes, I would be surprised. But
I'm not necessarily surprised because it had just won the Pulitzer, but I thought Giant had more teeth than it ended up having. I'm thrilled to bits. I adore Bess. Not only is this the first American female playwright since Wendy Wasserstein, it's the first female playwright in general since 2009.
And Yasmina Reza.
Yes,
And
and-
Art and God of Carnage.
And she said something really beautiful in the winner's circle, which is that she wants this play to be a spark of courage for everyone who sees it. And I really hope that this Tony win makes it more likely for people to produce it on the community and regional level, because I think this play could do so incredibly well across the country.
For sure. So Bess is great, and she's really smart, and I loved her speech. It's interesting. I mean, when we talk about how it's the first American woman since 1989, even that doesn't do justice to how ridiculously lopsided the history of the Tony Awards are.
Yes.
In this particular regard, because before Wendy Wasserstein in 1989, no American woman had won this thing by herself. Diary of Anne Frank was a co-win.
Yeah.
Other than that, not only no American woman, no woman had won other than co-writing Diary of Anne Frank until Wendy Wasserstein in 1989. And since then, it's only been Yasmina Reza twice. It's ridiculous. And we're at a time when women playwrights dominate in many ways the off-Broadway scene, have done very well at the Pulitzers. It's absurdly old-fashioned that it hasn't won. So I was very happy with Liberation.
We have to move on to Best Revival, which of course was a slam dunk, I think, always for Death of a Salesman. It's an extraordinary production, and it also won 5 other Tony Awards on top of that. One of the interesting things that caused a lot of buzz was why was the lead producer, along with Barry Diller, not mentioned, and that was Scott Rudin. Zach, do you know?
Oh, he has a sort of phantom-like presence these days, and he's actively cultivating it, actually, right? This power behind the scenes. And so it was, the reason why Nathan Lane had to sit there all night was because he accepted the award on Scott Rudin's behalf for this revival of Death of a Salesman.
I think we were all sort of in agreement that yes, there should have been a tie, but I think what Nathan Lane did, by virtue of its degree of difficulty, deserved the award.
I'm not sure
I'm
I
not in
agree.
agreement.
Yeah.
You're not in agreement? Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. You didn't like Death of a Salesman.
I did not care for this production. I love Joe Mantello. He is one of my favorite directors working today.
And
It
he
just didn't
won.
click for me. Yeah, and I was happy for Joe.
I adored this production, and I'm
Thank you.
glad that it won everything. But I do understand John Lithgow has more dominates his production more than Nathan dominates Death of a Salesman, because there's so much else that's going on that's so good in Death of a Salesman that was all rewarded. So I feel like maybe this was an opportunity to give something to someone other than Death of a Salesman. It won more awards than any of the musicals. It's a huge Death of a Salesman year. I think that one aftershock of that is that Liberation, although it won Best Play, didn't win any other awards, and it's happened before. It happened actually twice in the 2010s, but it's fairly rare, and it really is a reflection of just how popular Death of a Salesman was.
And also how tough that category was as well. I was kind of rooting for Susanna Flood. No offense to Lesley Manville.
Okay.
Don't beat me up.
In general, it was a really good play season.
It
Yes.
was an absolutely fantastic.
I do want to just jump back 1 minute about Liberation. You will notice that it was produced by 3 women.
Entirely female produced.
And having women producers recognize that women can write.
It was a parade of women up on that stage, and boy, was it beautiful.
Beautiful to see.
It was beautiful to see. Best Featured Actor in a Play was highly competitive.
Yes.
And I just was kind of disappointed, again, by degree of difficulty, that Christopher Abbott did not win for Biff in Death of a Salesman. Alden Ehrenreich did, and it was a popular win.
Yes.
But it's also a bigger, Alden Ehrenreich's part, because Becky Shaw is an ensemble play, everyone in it was eligible for featured instead of lead. He's really the lead in that play in a way that Chris Abbott is not. And so he gets the benefit of that a little bit. Also, Becky Shaw was terrific, and I think, again, people want to spread the wealth a little, and this was an opportunity to do that.
Is that the way you thought about it, Jan?
I felt about that I was sad that Ruben Santiago Hudson didn't win. There were just terrific performances in that category.
That's just how competitive it was. And again, for Best Featured Actress in a Play was wildly competitive with some seniors. Paid attention to seniors. 96-year-old June Squibb, 86 or 85-year-old Mary Louise Burke. But the winner was Laurie Metcalf, which seemed like a slam dunk, or somebody going to contradict
Of all
me here?
of the acting nominations that Death of a Salesman had, that's the one I felt the most confident in going in. She delivers that attention must be paid monologue with such fervor. It's really a delicious performance from her.
And it was two great performances from her because she was also in Little Bear Ridge Road, in which she was magnificent. Well, getting into the musicals. Happy Pride, y'all. That, of course, was Qween Jean when she came up to accept her Best Costume award.
First openly trans individual to win a Tony.
And so deserved. She was nominated for two shows, Liberation included. What a night for her, and what a night for the musicals. Best musical went to Schmigadoon, and I agree, Adam, leading up to that award, I believe that Lost Boys had 4, Schmigadoon had 3, so it was a toss-up.
Yeah.
At that point.
It could well have been one of those years where they give book and score to one show and lost. I mean, book and score exists so that you can separate the writing from the production. And so you often do get that kind of split. You got like Into the Woods winning score and book and Phantom winning Best Musical, for example, in 1988. There's no distinction between Best Play and Best Production of a Play, but for musicals, they do have these categories. So I was really, for me, it was still very tense at the end, which would win.
Jan, who were you rooting for?
I don't know that I was rooting. If I was rooting, it was probably for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York, but I didn't think it had a chance. Schmigadoon is like one of those big prestige, winners that the Oscars do, where they say, we feel good about ourselves because this is one for the ages. And I think it's a fun show. It's a show that everyone can enjoy. And yes, I'm sorry, The Lost Boys, I think it maybe was a little too close to The Outsiders, which had been celebrated last year. And here is a chance to say the old-fashioned traditional musical still lives.
Did you count that it was so derivative against it, Margaret?
For Schmigadoon, I did as well, but to me, I felt that it was tied up when it won orchestrations. If you get score, book, and orchestrations, I would have been shocked if it hadn't won Best Musical, and I'm known to be a Lost Boys fan. I thought maybe the tides were turning during the main broadcast, but by the end of Act 1, I had it tied up.
Orchestrations was one that I always felt was locked up for Schmigadoon, just like I thought that a set and lighting were locked up for Lost Boys. So for me, that didn't change anything. Okay. I was just, I think maybe Schmigadoon winning both book and score was a good sign for it. But again, I expected it to win both in the first place.
When we were last together and predicting, there seemed to be momentum towards Lost Boys. At least that's the impression that I got.
That was my theory, and it completely fell apart. I assumed that there was going to be a big anti-Lost Boys vote, but it wasn't going to coalesce around a single candidate, and that was going to allow it to ascend. I was wrong. It was Schmigadoon. Schmigadoon was that other candidate, and it was very clear to me early in the evening. I mean, you guys would know better than I would. Has there ever been a musical that has won Best Musical without winning either book or score?
Yes, many.
Yes,
many.
Suffs,
but they always get
Suffs not
direct.
long ago. I believe Suffs won book and score and did not win Best Musical.
No, but
Well,
I mean
that
a Best Musical that did. Oh,
That happens a lot.
Yeah, maybe Happy Ending.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe Happy Ending.
But the thing is, maybe Happy Ending had director.
Right.
And in terms of what you're talking about with The Outsiders, I do think Michael Arden having just won for maybe Happy Ending and having that huge groundswell of a season last year, I think that is a factor for people.
He didn't go home empty-handed.
No, he
because
did not.
Won by,
I'll tell you,
Best,
the one
lighting.
that was the real indicator for me watching it was, weirdly enough, Best Sound Design of a musical, because Kai Harada won for Ragtime, and what that meant was he didn't win for Cats, and it didn't go to Lost Boys.
It's an interesting point.
Lost Boys was kind of expected to win that, I think, because it's a bigger show. If it didn't, it means there's not a sweep enthusiasm for Lost Boys. If he won for Ragtime instead of Cats, then it isn't going to Cats. You know what I mean? So as soon as those happened, I was like, oh, Schmigadoon and Ragtime are going to win.
It did provide one of the funny moments in the broadcast
so
because
funny.
he didn't know. He had to ask, which one did I win for?
Laura, what did I win?
Because I was nominated for both.
Yeah.
Anyway, in terms of the best musical revival, again, there was a consensus among us that it was going to be Cats. The Jellicle Ball, because we argued or made the point that generally a revival goes to the most inventive, the one that takes something that we think we know and showed us a new, flavor about it. And that certainly was Cats. Why do you suppose Ragtime won?
Oh, there's so much tiresome Monday morning quarterbacking about this, and theories and people kind of reading their own. You know, that's what we do. We construct narratives in the theater about why this happened. Ultimately, we can't know what was in the hearts of the voters. We don't even know the vote totals. I wish the Tony Awards would release those receipts so that we would know how, because I suspect this was a very, very close vote, that it was separated by a few votes. If they did that like the Eurovision or the New York Drama Critics Circle, which is completely transparent about our voting, I think that there would be a lot less hurt feelings about this.
Well,
Never going to happen.
I think there would be way more hurt feelings.
Never going to
So
happen.
many hurt feelings. All the people who got almost no votes would be humiliated. I don't think that would
Yes,
make it out.
yes. I suppose the thing about it is that people do not want to say
No,
who
you
they
want
voted
always
for.
people think it was just.
Yeah, they all want to think second place.
Yes.
I was
Yeah, and
not
I think you don't
surprised.
want to disturb that particular fantasy.
I was not surprised that Ragtime won. Again, the fact that it won. Look, what I was expecting is that Cats would win its slate, Ragtime would win a couple of performances, maybe more, and then it would ultimately go to Cats. When Ragtime won Best Score, that felt like voters are looking to pad that win. It's just how the voter mind works. Because otherwise you're just voting for two acting categories, and that's not Best Musical. You have to have other things.
Did you say Ragtime won Best Score?
No, I'm sorry, Best Sound.
Yes, Best Sound. Best Sound. I think the locks that we knew were pretty much settled even before and that was for the two stars of Ragtime.
Joshua Henry was
and
for
Casey
sure
Levy.
a lock.
Was very popular. He's worked his ass off at 41. He finally nailed
I
it.
feel like it's been inscribed to him since he sang "Make Them Hear You" for the first time in City Center.
Yeah. I mean,
That was the biggest lock of the night.
Right, and Casey Levy as well. I think she'd been nominated at least
I
once.
had thought that Marla had a shot, but I was not surprised to see Casey win. I just thought Titanic might get on the board somewhere, and I thought Marla was the more likely.
Biggest surprise of the night, Louis Bourzgui. At 24, he wasn't nominated for Tony.
20, yeah.
But he won at 26 in an extraordinary moment of the Tonys and gave a speech where he went there, Jan.
Yeah, and congratulations to him. No one else did. There might have been, a little allusion to things, and very brave for a young actor starting out in his career to take on the major issues that are facing the broader world, and to do it with such elegance and eloquence.
Moroccan American,
Yes.
raised as a Muslim by his father, who was from Morocco born, mother from Boston. And he absolutely argued for compassion for every group imaginable, and especially addressed Islamophobe and the occupation of Palestine.
He said the word Palestine in an award about Broadway in a year that Giant was on Broadway. Nobody else did that.
And I was surprised that John Lithgow did not take the opportunity to talk about the scourge of anti-Semitism.
I was not surprised at all. He's
Why?
been very careful in his acceptance speeches this season. I don't know what's going on with their marketing team, but the Giant team seems to not want people talking about what the play is about, which is odd to me. He spoke about it quite openly in the winner's room, though. So there is footage of Lithgow speaking about the play.
I think that with Ali's win, this was actually one that I had predicted, but I predicted that it would be an upset because I think a lot of people thought that Andre de Shields was going to win for Cats, or Ben Levi Ross maybe for Ragtime. But for me, as soon as I saw Lost Boys, I really felt like this is what should win this year. It's an incredibly dynamic and exciting performance. And I think that giving the awards to Ali and to Shoshana Bean from Lost Boys lets them pad out what they can, what they can give to Lost Boys and still feel like they've served it well without necessarily giving a vampire musical. I think ultimately people sat down and said, do we want a vampire musical to win? And I think ultimately it didn't feel classic.
Well, it seems, yes, I know you're a
I
big
agree.
vampire
I
fan. Margaret, I wonder if you have a secret nightlife that we don't know about.
I will not tell any lies. I will not tell any truths.
But I think perhaps it's finally broken the curse about a vampire
I
musicals.
certainly believe
it seems
it's broken
to be
the
on
curse.
the road.
It's on its way to being the longest running we've got. And speaking to Ollie's speech, I think he really was very aware, even though he's early in his career, maybe this is the only time he gets a platform like this and he was going to seize the moment. He has some really beautiful things that he's been saying on Instagram over the last couple of years about how when you're an artist, empathy is your job, and he doesn't understand how people can separate entertainment and activism when they're both empathy-based.
And Qween Jean felt the
Yes.
same way. She's an activist as well and used her moment with grace and with great dignity and elegance as well.
And gorgeous.
We're running out of time, but before that, Shoshana Bean, again, motherhood came to the fore. She won.
And an award
it
that
was
couldn't have happened if Casey Levy hadn't stayed with Ragtime.
Yep, no, they both won. It's nice.
Yeah. I'd like to get your final thoughts about the evening. For me, one of the most exciting moments was when Jalen Livingston and Bill Roche won for Best Direction. And I thought that meant that possibly Cats, the Jellicle Ball would win the Best Revival.
It certainly spoke to them really enjoying the concept and sort of what they put into this revival. I feel like it's their way of giving them Best Revival without actually giving them Best Revival. Because Best Director going to a revival is not super common.
And it also won Best Choreography as well, so I thought it was well on its way
And costumes. I think that voters were a little scared of Cats the Jellicle Ball.
Yeah.
I think that Ragtime, ultimately, they're both political shows to some extent. Ragtime is a safer kind of politics.
Agreed.
It's like Upper West Side liberal 1990s politics, ultimately. And Cats is a more modern, more radical, a little bit more in its moment. And it's like black, queer, and trans people. In this moment is a little bit more controversial than saying racism was bad in the 1910s.
I think it's
I
very
don't
good.
think, being an Upper West Side person, let me defend Ragtime and say it's not just about racism in the 1910s.
Oh, no, of course
It's talking about today, and I think seeing those three groups of people come together on that stage at this time when we're also divisive in this country really does make a statement.
It is the best statement to make for the 250th anniversary of our country, and the Declaration of Independence, Jewish immigrants and empowered women, and a upper class realizing that time is running out for them.
I didn't mean to be dismissive of Ragtime. I just mean that its image of inclusivity, here's all these different groups, everyone, the thing that you're talking about, here's how they contrast, here's how they compare. That is a bit, I think, easier to present as an image of Broadway politics.
This is why we need the vote totals. I think these are very close. I think this is
also-
something they agonized over.
I think it's close, but also one of the things I loved about the revival of a musical category is no matter which of those shows won, it was making a political statement. Because Rocky Horror is also very much making a call of who is and is not acknowledged in the theater community.
Zach, final thoughts?
I think for musicals, it was kind of an off year, frankly. But as you've mentioned in a previous show, this is sometimes just how it gets plugged in, and hopefully there'll be better years in the future. I think they made the most with what they had.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for joining us, you theater mavens, you passionate people about the stage. And we'll look forward to Tony Awards 80, which will be an anniversary. And, happy Pride, everybody. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
This is our season finale, and what a season it has been. But before we go, we have something to share. This fall, we're turning a new page. Theater All the Moving Parts becomes center stage, coming to CUNY TV in the fall. Until then, subscribe to the CUNY TV YouTube channel or download the CUNY TV app to watch all of our shows. I'm Patrick Pacheco, and we'll see you in September when the spotlight finds center stage.